I experienced great joy when I watched this brilliant, phenomenal Black woman, jurist, be so smart and just cut through the political gamesmanship that they were attempting to incite. And she just was composed. And as far as I'm concerned, was taking a whole lot of people to school.
To school, she took them indeed. Shout out to my fabulous colleague, Joy Reid, for that amazing interview with Vice President Harris, where she expressed what most of us were thinking as we watched Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson handle the Republican circus at her confirmation hearing last week, where Republicans are always happy to play the clowns. Try as they might to derail her, it seems that Judge Jackson is still on her way to becoming the first Black woman on the Supreme Court as the Senate Judiciary Committee prepares to vote on Monday, just days away. Meanwhile, questions are growing over current Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas over his wife Ginny's text to a Trump official urging them to overturn the election. And this was all first reported by CNN. Now, the Daily Beast is reporting that she gave hiring suggestions to Trump, which sources say that included known bigots. We could go on a whole list of that. Ginny Thomas has not responded to NBC News for a request for comment. Big surprise there. Elie Mystal, the amazing Elie Mystal, is back with me, and I had to bring in some backup because Ellie's too much fire. So joining me is Alexis Hogue. She's an assistant professor at Brooklyn Law School. She's also a former federal defender and civil rights attorney who I know will have a lot to add to this conversation. Thanks so much for being here, Alexis. Listen, Judge Jackson will not change the ideological balance of the court. So I'm curious to hear from you. How do you think her appointment to the Supreme Court will impact the court, considering what cases justices might hear during her tenure? Because we're talking about things like election outcome, like abortion, like the death penalty, like social media rules, et cetera. So as a Black woman, I'm uniquely interested in your thoughts.
Great. Thank you. And good morning to both of you. It's a joy to be back on your show, Tiffany. There is so much for us to discuss, but to your questions with Judge Jackson, as you mentioned, the balance of the court will remain in favor of the right. But what Judge Jackson will do with her confirmation is add legitimacy to the court as an institution, which clearly Chief Justice Roberts is most concerned with. She has stellar qualifications. In many ways, she's overqualified for this role. She has survived 3 prior Senate confirmations already, and she has experience on every single level of the federal judiciary, as well as being a former Supreme Court clerk. And so I'm thrilled that she's joining the court, but I don't expect any grand shift in the court's ideology. And that's something we'll have to wait for future presidents' terms for that to play out.
Yeah. And, I want to stick with you for a sec, Alexis, because you have an impressive resume, and you also are before students frequently in your capacity as a professor. And I'm just curious your thoughts personally. What does it personally mean to you to see this Black woman ready to be confirmed to the Supreme Court?
It's something I never could have imagined. When I was in law school over 15 years ago, there weren't any U.S. Supreme Court judges on the horizon that looked like Judge Jackson. She's not just a Black woman. She's a dark-skinned Black woman. She wears her hair naturally. She has stellar credentials. And most importantly, and I know this has been highlighted a number of times, is the fact that she's a former federal public defender. We have never, in the over 230-year history of the U.S. Supreme Court, had a public defender serve in this role. Justice Thurgood Marshall, when he left the bench in 1991, had accepted appointments on behalf of indigent people facing criminal charges, but he was doing it in his capacity with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And so there he was picking and choosing cases that would help advance the mission and ideology of LDF. Judge Jackson, on the other hand, worked for the federal judiciary, which oversees the federal public defender program, and accepted every single case that came before her in her role as a federal defender. And that's a perspective and an experience that we have never had on the Supreme Court. And it's something that is so sorely needed, because most of the Supreme Court judges, if they have been trial lawyers, and that's still not a prerequisite for the court, the vast majority of them have been in the private sector or as prosecutors.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Ellie, that Alexis makes. And speaking of in need of a public defender, perhaps Jenny Thomas might want to look into one, because I am baffled at how this woman has been able to maneuver this way. Something I've discovered a lot of our younger viewers may not know. Clarence Thomas was actually married to a black woman. He has a son named Jamal. And now with his new wife, with Jenny Thomas, he's always been problematic in his thoughts. He seems to have fallen deeper into the sunken place with this woman running a puppet regime, it appears, aiding Donald Trump in breaking the law. How is this possible that Judge Thomas can still continue to serve on the Supreme Court?
Yeah, Jenny Thomas is so crooked. She thinks like the Leaning Tower of Pisa is straight, right? Like she's been a problem for 30 years. But the American problem here is Clarence Thomas. Nobody's going to stop Jenny Thomas from having a job and thinking crazy thoughts and trying to overthrow the government. That's her problem. Clarence Thomas is supposed to be above the fray here. And again, you have to listen to the stupidity of the arguments coming out of the right. They're saying, well, actually, Thomas and Jenny say that they never talk about their work. Okay, A, I don't believe them. B, the issue is that your wife's caught up in the insurrection mess that you have to be a judge over, right? It's your wife's text that you're the only justice potentially that is voting to keep secret. Like, that's the problem, right? That's the problem with appearances. So, of course, he should recuse himself. But as I've said multiple times on this air, the Supreme Court is the only court in America that operates with no ethical guidelines. There are no ethics rules. There are no ethics statutes for the Supreme Court. And until Congress changes that, there's no way to force Thomas to recuse himself.
Well, I want to point out, because Joy, our friend Joy, did ask Vice President Harris about this last night in that great interview. I want to play a quick soundbite from that and then get your thoughts, Alexis, on the other side of this. Take a listen to Joy's conversation.
Do you believe that the revelations about Jenny Thomas have revealed that the ethics rules for Supreme Court justices need to be strengthened? Should Clarence Thomas recuse himself from any cases related to January 6th or future elections?
I definitely think that the court needs to take a critical look at its rules around ethics. And that relates to a series of issues that have come up over the years.
Alexis, your take.
So there is a model code of judicial conduct that the ABA promulgated in 1990. It hasn't been updated in over a decade. The problem with that model code is that it's worded, the canons are all judges shall. So there's no requirement there. There is a chief concern about the appearance of impropriety. And it's not just with professional activities, but also personal. So yes, Jenny Thomas, Clarence Thomas's wife, is relevant in this inquiry. However, the judicial code, this code of conduct, is not something that's required. And so the legal profession in general, including judges, are horrible at policing themselves, even though that's the mechanism we have set up. And Jenny Thomas, yes, has been a problem, as Ellie mentioned, for over 30 years. This is no secret. And the fact that you had Justice Thomas dissent from the request for Trump to block the records is highly problematic. And we've seen just other justices. Justice Kagan has recused herself, particularly in the beginning of her time after appointment. She was the former Solicitor General. Any case that she touched, even advised on, she would recuse herself in once she became a justice. And we're seeing Justice Thomas stand firm and weighing in on these issues that he is directly implicated in.
Yeah, and again, to remind our viewers, because the news cycle is such that we may not remember, Jenny Thomas actually left a voicemail for Anita Hill asking her if she thinks it's time to apologize, essentially, which was the most utterly ridiculous thing. We don't have time to play that. But as we go to break, I do just want to play this really quick clip of the questioning that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson faced while you had someone like Clarence Thomas sitting on the bench. This is what the Republicans had to question Judge Jackson about. Take a look.
Do you agree with this book that is being taught with kids that babies are racist?
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
On a scale of 1 to 10, how faithful would you say you are?
Is crack cocaine more dangerous than powder, or less, or the same?
So you have nothing to add about why these crimes, why these images, in your view, do not signal an especially heinous or egregious child pornography offense?
Do you know where the Muffin Man is? Do you know how many stars there are in the sky? Do you know what 8,000 squared is? I mean, it was so ridiculous, Ellie, when I watched that. We have like 10 seconds left. I just want to get your quick take on this ridiculous line of questioning they faced.
Yeah, to quote Ketanji Brown Jackson, right?
Yeah,
like, 'cause that's all you can say about these people. She's going to come through. She's going to come through clean on the other side, and we're going to have our first black woman Supreme Court justice. And as Cory Booker said, I'm not going to let these yahoos steal my joy.